Hey friends, welcome. In today's tutorial, we're gonna do some watercolor floral doodles, and believe me when I say anyone can do this and can make it look really great. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and on this channel we make art and it's fun, not scary. My goal is to get adults creating and spending like a little bit of creative time each day. It's a great sort of meditative practice. It's a great way to put away your screen. You know, you can have me on in the background, of course, but it's a great way to unwind and relax. And art doesn't have to be about making something beautiful, although I think that's an innate thing that we all want to, create something that's pretty, that looks good. So today's activity kind of marries those things. It's really chill and fun and relaxing, but you're gonna have something really pretty at the end, okay? It's very, very hard to screw this one up, let me tell you. And we're just gonna do these kind of little floral arrangements, and it's a great way to kind of test colors, test out and practice your brush strokes, that kind of thing. And we're gonna chat and hang out, because what else are we doing here if we're not hanging out? It is very, very cold here right now, as I am sure a lot of you are dealing with if you're anywhere like in the Northeast. Today in Southern Ontario, where I am, it is minus 17, minus 16, minus 17. Yeah, it's nasty. It's very cold, very snowy, but the nice thing is it's finally a little bit sunny. We had like a very dreary last 4 weeks. So yeah, winter can be so dark and it's been cloudy and like rainy. So actually the snow brings a lot of sun. Anyway, I'm working in my little Strathmore watercolor travel journal. It's got cold pressed 140-pound paper in there. So a little bit of texture, really nice weight to it. I have a little set of paints here. I just wanted to show you that you can use a very basic set of watercolors for this activity. You don't need anything fancy. I'm using a number 6 round brush. I've got 2 glasses of clean water paper towel for blotting my brush. I have some pencil. We're going to use a pencil and a pen, and then I do have some markers here. That's totally optional. You don't need to have markers. Let's jump into it. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of what we're going to do. Take a pencil, and over here on this page, we're just going to draw like 4 U shapes. It looks like little boobies. And then we're going to make some floral arrangements. And I think you'll see what I mean when we get started. This will become the vase or the pot or whatever. Actually, I'm going to give myself a little bit more room. She already screwed it up. So there's a V, there's a V, another U, and your boobs are in place. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll paint these, and once we are happy with them, when we've practiced and played around a bit, we'll put one over here and we'll kind of make it a little bigger and grander. You get it. We'll do some practice and then kind of a more finished piece. So if it is cold and miserable where you are, I feel you, I'm right there with you. It has been so cold and it's been snowing and so stormy that it's been really hard to get out here. And that has contributed to a little bit of like cabin fever, a bit of a winter blahs feeling. I've just been a bit like, ugh. Especially on the weekend when we're home with Sully, our 2-year-old. It's like, what do you do when you can't get outside? And I've just been feeling a bit like, blah. Like usually I'm someone who's really excited to start the day and what are we gonna do? We're gonna do something really fun. And lately I've just been struggling to like feel like excited about the day. I think that's just a winter thing. So if you're feeling like that, I'm there, I'm with you. It's just that time of year when all the Christmas excitement is done and it's just like, oh yeah, now we have to do winter, like, So I'm mixing up some pinks and some yellows, just some colors. Basically, I'm just mixing some colors that I'll use for the flowers. And what I like to do with like a pink, I'll mix like a hint of brown in so it's not quite so bright. I also did that with the yellow ochre here, the raw sienna, kind of a more muted color. I'm going to use this nice olive green, get a little bit of that and keep it over here. So I've got some green to use. I just don't want these bouquets or these arrangements to get like super bright in color. Let's put a little bit of like a violet. I'm gonna mix indigo with a little bit of magenta. Give me like a nice purpley, and then I wouldn't even be mad at putting like a hint of brown in there as well to darken it. I'm also going to grab like a nice red. What color is this? You know, when you haven't used a palette in a while, you're like, what color even is that? So we've got some nice warm colors, and basically what I'm saying is don't be afraid, put a little brown in there, or use the color that is opposite the color on the color wheel. So for yellow, you could add like a little hint of blue, or I'll mix a little hint of red into my greens to darken them, to deaden the color slightly, because red is across from green on the color wheel. Okay, so we have our V. The V is going to be the pot, the vase, the whatever. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just paint some messy flowers. I like to do a little rose by kind of going around and doing kind of a broken spiral. That's all. And now to have some balance within this arrangement, I'll do another one, but I'm gonna make it a bit smaller. Just like a broken circle, basically. These are floral doodles. They're not like fancy floral doodles. What would look good with that red? Maybe a little pink. A little pink I'm not mad at. I'm gonna add a bit of white to that. And I'm going to add a little bit of that yellow ochre as well, just to make it peachy, very muted. For this one, I want to do another floral shape that's very doodly. And so I'm just going to do some little brush marks, kind of go like that. Brush mark, and you can see if we run a bit of green through there, we'll have something that looks like a flower. Like, why not? That could be a flower. So the idea here is to kind of make floral shapes and then leave it alone and say like, that's a flower if I say it's a flower. That's something I've been saying on this channel for quite a few years now. It's a flower if I say it's a flower. It's a leaf if I say it's a leaf. So just make a random shape, and I promise you, by the end, it's all going to look like flowers because we're making little arrangements. So basically anything you put in here, it's going to be very hard for it to not look like a flower. Does that make sense? It's hard to screw this one up. So we've got some roses, we've got some of these kind of, what would this be? Maybe it kind of looks like a lupin or something like that. We'll put one more like droopy one out here. You're gonna be drooping over. If you want, give yourself a little line, and you can always go over it with green later. So there we go. We got our droopy pink one. And what else would look good? And this is a great way to practice your color palettes. I love this deep, rich red, almost magenta red. I love the light pink. What would look good with that? I'm thinking maybe like a little bit of like a really light, cool blue. So I'll take a little bit. I've got like a sky blue here. Rinse my brush poorly. Mix in a whole lot of white, a hint of yellow ochre. And I've got this kind of funny color. And what if it was just like a tulip? So it's basically like a U shape. There we go. We'll put a tulip in there. We can always add some detail later. Once this has dried, we can do a little wet on dry. With that technique, you can be very, very precise. So that's always good. And maybe there's like one tulip like kind of falling over in the foreground here at the front of this little bouquet. That's pretty. Maybe there's just some blue hint in there that you can't quite see. Great. So that, I will come back in when that has dried a little bit and add to my bouquet, to my arrangement. But I think everything's just a little bit too wet. You can see I've got some bleeding there, which is fine. I can always take a damp, clean brush and just erase. But I don't want there to be too much bleeding of the pinks and the greens. So let's give it a second. I love this little color palette. I'm happy with that. and maybe it's a color palette that I could use in a larger piece. So this is what we're doing with our sketchbook. We're practicing our brush strokes, like these tiny little flicks of the brush, those are flowers. We're practicing creating a color palette. Does this color palette, you know, speak to me? Does it make me happy? Do I even like it? Sometimes yes, sometimes not really. But that one I love. So it's something that I'll go back to and try in another piece. Okay, I just mixed like a weird brownie orange color into that, but you know what? Let's make it work. Let's have a Tim Gunn moment here. I'm going to do kind of like some like marigolds. So for that, usually I'll make a circle and then I'll just like make the circle lumpy. You want to do that quickly while the paint is still wet. And we'll do one that's kind of on an angle. So a bit of a semicircle, still quite lumpy. And let's grab that yellow that we had initially. Maybe put a little bit of brown into it. And we'll do like little flicks of the brush. Gives us kind of like a little daisy or a black-eyed Susan, something like that. That looks kind of pretty. I like how they're drooping down, so I think I'll do another little droopy fellow over here. That's fun. And do we need more? Let's have one like way up high, like this one wasn't trimmed properly. That's how I always do my bouquets. Like, oh, that one I didn't cut right. So it doesn't have to be perfect just because like life's not perfect, obviously. Okay. And that's where we're gonna head. You know, you can see the direction this is going. For this next one, I want to grab, I did this kind of indigo mixed with magenta. Give me a beautiful dark violet, and maybe I do put like a hint of brown in there as well. If you want a really warm warm violet, you can just add more magenta. Let's see what that looks like. What would be a good flower? I think for this one, I want to do something that's like reminiscent of a lilac, a lupin, and I'm just doing like messy brush strokes. Maybe I can make that a little bit more like palatable for if you're trying to work along with me. Start with the stem and then you're just like messing it up basically. There we go. Maybe we put a little bit of pink into that or a little white and just have one that's like kind of the same color but a little bit different. It's just messy brush marks, that's all it is. I find with my winter blahs, like when I'm not feeling my best, I just get so irrationally. I have an irrational sense of guilt when I kind of have like the blues and feel down. And this storm that we had a storm that was kind of over a couple days, and it would snow and then it would rain and then it would snow again. So it was like causing all this ice, and I've seen a lot of like snapped tree limbs and stuff because the snow would just be so heavy, and it snapped part of a hydrangea tree in our front yard, which is like, that's nature. But we have this poor cedar bush in our backyard, and the snow, we should have tied it up or put burlap on it, and the snow is just like destroying it. And we knew that would happen because we saw it happen last year. And this year we were like, we're gonna be so good about it. We're not gonna let that happen again. And what did we do? We never got around to putting the burlap on that we bought and all the string and tying it. And now this poor cedar is like suffering. And you know, it's only my second winter as a homeowner, and I just feel like we're ruining this yard. Like we're not being good enough to the yard. And I know it's silly. I mean, please don't comment like, that poor tree. That's not the energy. This is your chance to be like, I left my baby in the car, and everyone will be like, it's fine. Just kidding. Sorry, that's terrible. No, I actually was gonna say, comment below with something that you feel like why is this happening to me? Irrational guilt. If you feel a sense of guilt about something that you know is just so silly, like, yeah, I should do better by this tree, but I really don't need to be like losing sleep over it. It's just so silly, the things we get hung up on. I feel like it's something you can tell other people and they'll be like, yeah, that's so silly. It's really not that big of a deal. Like, that's the epitome of don't sweat the small stuff. So comment below with your thing that you feel guilt about, that you know, like you shouldn't, or you know, it's just not worth the amount of guilt that you feel over it. That's definitely what's happening with this poor tree. I feel like I'm murdering something. We're actually supposed to get warm temperatures next week. So hopefully Chris and I will go out and burlap it. It's like I'm wrapping it up like, don't worry guys, the tree will be okay. It's like, it's fine. Sometimes trees get harmed by winter. Okay, yeah, comment below, make me feel like I'm not alone in this. I like what happened here where we just have this crazy drooping, like big burst of purple. I wanted them to be a bit more different in color, like some dark and some light. They're a little one note, but that's okay. That's why we're practicing. So I could have gone lighter on the light ones. That's what I'm seeing here. And maybe I'll do like a scraggly one out there because these are very full. There we go. Put some little boops, like just to give it a bit more life. And for the final one, what would be a good color for you? I think we'll bring some more pinks in. So let's grab, I've got kind of this peachy color here. Mix a little white into that. I mean, things on my palette are a little messy, but that's okay. Let's bring you over and let's do some round, like rosy kind of. Another way I do a rose is kind of start with a circle and then just do like a messy, almost doodle, scribble, almost as if you're drawing it, like circle, and then like that idea of that scribbly, messy flower. I think that's quite cute. Scribbles, scribbles, and it's going to look great. Don't be afraid to just leave some negative space or just do one that's like a random little boop. A heart shape I find is always good. Well, that doesn't look like a heart, but that's where I was headed. Okay, time for us to add a little bit of green. Or another nice idea here is when you're doing a piece like this, you don't have to do green as for the leaves. These would all be great candidates for making the leaves like a dark indigo. Or a bright blue or something. So totally up to you. You could go with, I love a blue leaf. It's just a fun, illustrative, you know, just shows that you thought about this. You're gonna do something a little different. You don't have to make your leaves green. You're cool. You play by your own rules. Okay, I mixed a little bit of brown into that green to muddy it up a bit. And then all we need to do now is, no, don't start with that one because then you're gonna put your hand in the paint. Let's start with this one. And all we need to do is kind of like right in here, we can just add some green. We're gonna put some, ooh, you got too much paint on your brush. We're gonna give this guy some stems, you know, just really some little green markings will pretty much do the trick. You don't need to do a lot, as you can see there, to make it look like everything is joined, like everything has a stem, a leaf, whatevs. Let's put some, don't put your hand in the paint. Put some leaves over here. irrational. Irrational. Okay. You get a stem and you get a stem. There, you don't have to overdo it. Really, it's a lot of like blobs. I'm going to put even more brown in and darken this one a little. Let's put a little indigo in there. I don't want the greens to look too different, but I think for this really warm one, we're just going to darken it slightly. And you can see I'm just doing like a whole bunch of quick, thin brush strokes. These guys need some little stems. You know, it would look good to have one more long one up there. I like the way that that one up there looks kind of on his own. So we'll put one more stem. You can always add more, nothing wrong with that. And whereas I did kind of brush marks and did these oval shaped leaves on the first one, for this one, everything is kind of grassy. I'm doing long like that. And that's it, we can leave it at that. It doesn't require anything further. These guys, picture this as like a lilac or a lupin. We're gonna add some green. It doesn't need much. Definitely, I think some leaves in here. And you can definitely still add some green to the purple area or to the flower. That's nice. Some long leaves sort of drooping down like that, I think works well. Great. And then let's lighten this color up again. A little brown, a little bit of brown so it's not too bright. And then this might still be a little wet, so I'm just going to be careful and aware of that. Just add some little stems with some leaves. For the leaves, you know, your best bet is just to run your brush across the page. Just make a brush mark and then leave it alone. As I said, great brushwork practice. Don't overthink it. Some can be really thin, others can be wide. You know, some of those leaves you are seeing on an angle, so they're going to be a little bit thinner. It can be small ones, large ones, you know, some contrast of size is not a bad idea. Some that are peeking out from behind a flower. Oh, there we go. I really like the way this is looking so far. This is a fun little exercise. So what do we want to do now? Well, let me tell you. We are going to draw the vase in with a pen or a marker, and I think that's going to look really pretty. And then if you want, you can add detail to the flowers with markers or brush pens. But what I want to do, just what I feel like doing today, is adding the detail with paint. So as I said, with a wet on dry technique, you can be very precise. Wet on dry is just what it sounds like. Just wet paint on dry. And see how before, if you put paint on when it was wet, it would blend and blur, which can be very helpful. But now we can get a wonderful amount of precision. And if all that is kind of like, what? I do have some watercolor e-courses. Those are available on my website. I am very into fair pricing on my e-courses. If you have spent any time on the internet, I'm sure you've seen the like, this course is $900, but right now it's a bazillion percent, 97% off. And so it's only $27. And you know, it's like, buy now though, or you're gonna miss the sale. You'll miss it. So I try not to do that. So probably a bad choice on my part, less financially, I mean. But I don't like that sort of behavior. And so I just have, I think, very fair prices on my e-courses. And so they're all, you know, around 100 or under. The beginner one is, I think it's $65, so it's very achievable. And then I always have a little coupon code for you. So right now, use the code on the screen to get 15% off anything site-wide, including the bundles. And treat yourself to a little bit of learning this new year. I love to start the new year off. I think I'm gonna take a virtual or an online course on acrylics. That's something that I'm kind of getting into a bit more, so I wanna do some learning. So I'm right there with you. And I don't like that weird internet pricing. It's like trying to make you afraid, like you're gonna miss it. Then you'll have to spend $900. Okay, so you can head to ShaydaCampbellCourses.com. This is the worst ad ever. ShaydaCampbellCourses.com to check out my e-courses. And it's just a great way to get all the basics, because on YouTube, we often are very project focused, like let's make this flower painting, and not as focused on like the learning materials, the basics, like why are we using the kind of paper we are, etc., etc. Okay, I think this looks really cute, you guys. Let's set the brush aside for a minute. We're going to grab a pen, and I use Pigma Microns as well as these Mulatto black liners. They're both similar in that they allow you to be very precise because you can choose your perfect nib size. And they're both archival quality and waterproof. So if you did want to add more paint, more wet medium, you go ahead and do that. So now we're gonna have a bit of fun drawing in, okay, can you dry please so I don't stick my hand in you? Now we're gonna have a bit of fun drawing in these vases. Let's start with this guy. And they can all be a little different. Like, it's kind of fun to make different shapes for the urns. Give it a bit of a, like, brim there. And remember, this is a doodle. This does not need to be perfect. I'm gonna do a little curving line, and then maybe another one, and then the big base, something like that. If it's not totally even, that is fine. It's all fine. All of it. It's all good. Maybe a few dots on there to show that it's like concrete or something like that. Another line up top. I don't want to overdo the details because I think this little doodle element of this is really fun. And then for this guy over here, why don't we do you in, like, I'm picturing this kind of vase or bucket with all these lines. Could be like a crystal vase, or it could just be like a funky tin bucket with all these impressions. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that. And you can always put a few more stems in there or something. For this guy over here, kind of do a similar shape to the first one. That's cute. You know, we could even do something fun like bring the stems in here and have them sitting in water, as if like anything below this area is marker or pen and anything up here is watercolor. I think that's kind of fun. And then this guy, this little friendo. Go. I think that looks pretty. And this one is going to have some designs on it. Some stripes. Just color that in. Everything's very perfectly imperfect, which I like. And there's going to be like a little floral pattern. So we'll put some little flowers with leaves. But it's all kind of scribbly and messy. And I think that's fun. That's cool. I'm gonna kind of give that a little bit more. I like to sort of do a double line sometimes when I'm drawing glass. I just find it helps it look more like it is that see-through glass. And then the nice thing here is that we can reach for a smaller nib fine liner. So that was a 0.7, this is a 0.3. And we can do something like put more lines in here and they will just add shading, but they won't like detract from the contour drawing that we already laid out. Do a bit of shading there and up here. Awesome. Cool. A little bit of shading goes a long way. So now I thought it would just be fun to do one more together, like one slightly larger one. And I was gonna pick one and like make a bigger version, but honestly, I think the whole piece as like a sketchbook spread would look more interesting if I just did something totally different. And you don't wanna see me do the same thing over again. So let's just wing it. We'll start by putting that little boob shape over here. It doesn't have to be huge, like you don't have to make it the whole size of the page or anything crazy. Okay, and all we want to think about is what kind of color palette would we like to do over here? I'm thinking maybe, I definitely like these warm golden hues over here, especially when it's gloomy and wintry. So let's start there. I'm actually going to add a bit of white, and I think that's going to give a nice creamy sort of look. When you are working a bit bigger, you have even more chance to play around and see like, what can I really do when I just do these weird, messy brush strokes? Like over here, everything's so tiny, you could literally do anything and you'll be able to turn it into a flower. Over here, you can be a little bit more precise, but still weird and wonky. I think that looks kind of cool. Let's mix like a whole lot of white in and do one last one, but like make it tiny. There we go. What else should we put in here? What would look good with that? Maybe some of that sort of bright blue that we used for the tulip. I think that would be good. A little bit of white again. And what shape are we gonna do? I do really like that rando, like random, where you're just doing brush marks and then you join them together later with a bit of green. It's just so weird and fun. kind of an anything goes. Okay. Let's do one that kind of curls around. That's going to add a nice flow to this composition. You're like curling up and over. This guy's kind of curling down this way. Yeah, that's pretty. And then maybe one over here where it's like really drooping down the sides of the vase. I think that's fun. I probably could have placed this a little lower. You know, obviously this could go higher, but this is the base. So when you're doing it, put your U shape a little bit lower than mine. Did mine a little bit weirdly high. And then any color would look good, like red or orange I think would look really nice. Purple would work beautifully as well. Let's add a bit of that green and see what that looks like. And then maybe that'll inspire the final color choice. Blot my brush a bit. I'm gonna give you a stem. Definitely got a little bit of blurring there, which I kind of want. Don't want these to look too perfect. Put some leaves. There we go. And I think I'm going to go with that kind of orangey brown color for the final flower. That's, I think, going to look really pretty with the blue. And you know what? It also just doesn't really matter too much. We could do any color. It's just a great practice. I'm just doing nice big round flowers there. Mix that together and get another color, and let's just do one more over here. It's actually pretty much the exact same color. That's fine. There. Like the way that looks. It's got kind of like a little bit of a vintagey vibe. I'm going to grab a little bit of green, maybe make it a bit darker. A little bit of brown, a little bit of indigo. And I'm just doing some like thin little lines out here to help with the look of the stems and leaves and shaggy leaves. Remember, we're just doing like random brush marks. Remember the old adage, it's a leaf if you say it's a leaf. There we go. It just looks like this big joyful burst of flowers. I'm very pleased with that guy. And we can draw in our little urn, and then we can go back in either with markers or with watercolor and add some detail. And you know what? Why don't we do it with marker for this one? Because then if that's like really your thing, you'll get a chance to see it on camera and see how I would approach it. So let's put away the paintbrush. I'm gonna give that like 2 seconds to dry, and we'll use some marker on top and we'll draw in the urn. So while we're waiting for these flowers to dry, why don't we draw in this cute little urn. Don't want it to be too perfect. There, that's kind of a good urn shape. There we go, and we'll give it a bit of a lip up at the top. Just have to go over that in pen. And I think I'm going to go with a bit of a thicker fine liner. Last time I used the 0.7, this time I'm going to use the 1 millimeter. This is larger, so I think it can kind of stand up to that, and it looks good. Yeah, that's fine. Don't do too much. That looks cute. I like that it's simple. Maybe I'll come in here and just do some shading with the 7. A little bit of cross hatching to show that there's a bit of shadow on there. I also have an illustration course that's all about drawing flowers and line shading and hatching and all that good stuff. So you'll find that on ShaydaCampbellCourses.com as well, and that code is good for that as well, for that 15% off. These are pretty dry, so let's grab some colors that sort of complement. So I've got like a darker blue, and we're gonna do similar markings. Like for this one, we can just add a dark blue, and we don't have to do a lot. A little goes a long way when you're adding detail with brush pen or with colored pencil. You know, it just gives it this extra bit of life and liveliness, and it's so simple. And if you are struggling to get your footing with watercolor, adding color afterwards or adding detail afterwards using a marker can be a really great way to build confidence. So let's just going to do some kind of long, messy lines. I mean, the nice thing is these brush pens, you use them like watercolor brushes. You add extra pressure. You start using that delicate tip, and then you add that pressure and you thicken the line. So delicate tip and then go out. There we go. Sorry, it's getting really sunny, and that's creating quite the amount of shadow. So I know that's a bit annoying. I will fix that in the next YouTube video. And I'm just going to, honestly, it's just been so dark and gloomy here. I didn't even think it would get like this sunny. I should have sat at the other end of the table. Kind of looking cool. See how you can just make like rando marks and it works? It's like, what are you even doing? I'm going like this. Doot, 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 doot. What is that? And we can give our urn a little bit of color, a little bit of shading. Go. I think the only thing left to do is maybe put a little bit of detail on these guys. And I think what I'm gonna do is like a really bright center, and that's fun. There we go, guys. It's like shadow puppets. Oh, now it's not. Okay. So that is my fun, foolproof lesson on watercolor floral doodles. Lesson's not really the right word for these videos. Sorry. These are just meant to be encouraging and very fun and free and like a fun hangout. you can see how it's a great way to practice your brushwork. You get to play around with color palettes and kind of start finding ones that you like and that speak to you. Your sketchbook should be a place of inspiration. So when you flip through it, you see like, yeah, lots of mistakes and weird stuff, but you also see beautiful stuff. And you also see things like, ooh, I like the way I was doing those brush strokes. I like the way I did this color palette here. And so it inspires you. It gives you inspiration to keep going and making new pieces. Your sketchbook doesn't have to just be like, oh, that one's good, that one's bad. It is all there as your body of work to inspire you, to push you forward, and to, you know, serve as your way of experimenting. So I hope that this little experiment was fun and that you enjoyed it. And I really love putting the brush pen on top. It's just very tempting to be like, oh, couldn't we just do like a bit of a do. That one's not dark enough. Not dark enough. But we could do like a little, oh, we're just gonna add a little like center to some of those or something. Anyway, you can see how versatile this is and how you can really play around and start building your skills, even if you're totally new to watercolor. Thanks for watching today, guys. Use the code on the screen to get 15% off any of my e-courses. There's watercolor for beginner, a watercolor sort of beyond beginner, and a floral illustration e-course as well. If you are interested in bonus content every week and extra videos, you can head over to my Patreon. I have a wonderful artistic community over there, and it's only $3 a month to be a part of that community and get all the extra bonus materials. So think about that, patreon.com/Shayda Campbell. It's a great way to support this channel. My Patreon is how I am able to do this and how I'm able to put out all these videos that are free on YouTube. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, head over there. Thanks for watching today, guys. Hit that subscribe button and I will see you soon. And don't forget to comment with something that like gives you a rational guilt. That just makes you, you know, kind of crazy at night, but you know is like not that big of a deal. And then we can all commiserate and be like, that's nothing. Okay, bye guys.